Shalom, family. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's weekly news update. Always a pleasure and a privilege when we get together for these reviews. And again, I apologize for the challenges. We had massive technical difficulties today, but nothing we couldn't handle, nothing we don't get through. Come on, we blow through. Come on, this is just another day. And so, what are we? We are overcomers. That means that when we are facing a challenge, we don't give up. We just double down and go harder. And so, thank you for those of you that understand that. Stay with us and don't let yourself become. Well, one of the things we like to say here is be informed without being what? Overwhelmed. And so, it's very important that you stay calm, especially in crisis. It's one thing that I don't know how come I got good at that, but I did. I stay calm in crisis, and thank you, Yahuwah, for that, because that has served me well many times through my lifetime. So again, thank you for joining us, those of you that are doing so. And for those that come along after, we're always grateful you stop by. Love seeing your lovely faces and encouraged by your support. Want to make sure that everybody who comes along knows where to go to get the latest updates on stories. And of course, we have this great website, remnantwatch.com. It's a labor of love done by Remnant Watch. And of course, we are so thankful for all of the members of this house that make these broadcasts possible. And I love you very much as well. And of course, at the top here, the banner, you'll always find the latest weekly news update. If you click there, in fact, that took me an extra minute because I almost forgot to update that. So I had to run back and make sure that was correct, because some people do run in, and we want to make sure they catch up to us quite right away. Of course, we have our stories here, and we do have these handy guides for the disasters that we continue to see. Put them up a few years ago and haven't taken them down since. And we do have the search bar for those of you that are searching back on stories that are trying to figure out what trends are happening, what things are repeating themselves, and whether or not we are just being gamed. How many are like, I think we're being gamed? I think we're being hustled. Half the time we end up feeling this way, don't we, guys? And then we start asking new questions, and we start looking at the data, and we start wondering, okay, wait a second. Hold on a minute. Is this really what we're looking at, or are we being manipulated? Or is there some other game afoot? And you guys are pretty sharp. So many of the things that we have sat on have turned out to be quite interesting over time, right? So especially things like the disasters that we were watching. We were watching a parade of disasters for a long, long period of time, and it doesn't look like that is ending anytime soon. So again, thank you again for joining us. Thank you for sharing the link. Thank you for subscribing. YouTube does continue to unsubscribe people for some reason that I do not understand. Now, there's something going on there with that. So please always make sure you are subscribed and double check that you have the bells on for notifications so that you get an update whenever we upload videos. And we will be uploading more, because this is becoming a more and more active channel, I tell you right now. Thank you again to all of you. And on that note, let's get into the news. On tonight's top story, we're looking at Iran, who's halting the ceasefire talks with the U.S. and says it's going to close the Straits of Hormuz. So we going back and forth. The straits are open, the straits are closed. The straits are open, the straits are closed. The straits are open, the straits are closed. Nobody knows. They can't figure out which way we're doing this two-step. Iran halts ceasefire talks with U.S., says it will keep Straits of Hormuz closed, as if it has the power to do so. And so this again continues to rattle the United States and other regional powers that are starting to get quite annoyed with the concept that Iran is taking full control of the Straits of Hormuz. Iran has accused the Trump administration of ceasefire violations and essentially as the proxy of Israel, of course, and will move close to close the Straits of Hormuz and stop exchanging messages with the U.S. through intermediaries, Iran's state-affiliated outlet Tasnim news agency reported today. So the report, translated from a post on the message app Telegram, pointed to Israel's military operations. Do you see that? So it pointed to Israel's military operations in Lebanon against the Iranian-backed Hezbollah as a violation of the ceasefire with the U.S. Okay, so you're seeing this? The report says the Israeli ceasefire in Lebanon is a precondition for the ceasefire between Iran and the U.S. Wow. So suddenly, whether you like it or not, we got entangled in a conflict that has been going on for quite some time between Hezbollah in the north and Israel, of course, in its northern border. So much for exiting this theater of operations anytime soon. This looks to me like a quagmire. And again, we have lots of evidence to indicate that this is not going to go well, and it's not going to go quietly into the night, as some people hoped it would. It did look as if they were trying to do a quick effort in Iran. That has massively backfired, as we've now watched as Iran has essentially refused to capitulate despite all kinds of damage that's been done to their infrastructure and done to their country. Doesn't seem to bother them, doesn't seem to faze them. Instead, what they continue to do is issue threats and send missiles into various countries throughout the Middle East. So we're continuing to see a reaction from Iran, but not what people were expecting. And except those that were aware that this was a bad idea from Jump Street. Who knew, right? Who said this is a bad? Who said? Come on, you guys. We all know who said that was a bad idea. Okay. And now we're finding out Iran is now issuing a horror threat to attack Israel as Trump's ceasefire is collapsing, and Iran has issued a dire new threat. So, and they carry out their threats, guys. So this is the thing that you got to deal with. Iran's armed forces have threatened further action against Israel following strikes in Lebanon on Monday. And that means today the warning came from the Qatam al-Abinia central headquarters after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he had instructed Israeli military, together with the Defense Minister Israel Katz, to strike targets in Beirut's Daya district in response to what he described as repeated Hezbollah ceasefire violations and attacks on Israeli citizens and cities. Again, so this is just going to continue the tit for tat, which of course gets us nowhere. Okay, what do we get when we go tit for tat? We just get tit for tat. And we've all seen it. We've all seen children fight in the backyard, and we both look at them like, you both look ridiculous. How many have ever looked at a pair of kids, you know, standing there ready to duke it out? You look at them and you go, you both look ridiculous. You both look absurd. You look like buffoons, both of you. And unfortunately, that's what I think we're all looking like when we bring out our big guns and they don't do anything that they think everybody thought they were going to do. And no one's as scared of them as they used to be. This is getting bad. This is getting bad. Now, in addition to some of these attacks that we see going on in Beirut and going on in Lebanon, in addition to that, one of the things that continues to happen is Netanyahu doesn't look like he's on board with the ceasefire program. Okay, let me just say that. Can I just say that without? It doesn't look like it to me. What do I know? Maybe maybe it's somehow coordinated. I don't know, but it looks to me like you got somebody who doesn't want a ceasefire. Netanyahu says he has directed the IDF to increase control of Gaza to 70%. I wonder if that was the plan all along. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that he directed the Israeli Defense Forces to increase control of Gaza to 70%. So again, didn't want a peace deal? Well, this is what happens. Should have taken the deal. Speaking at a conference on Thursday, he said, we're currently squeezing Hamas. We now control 60% of the territory of the Strip. You know this. We are at 50. We moved to 60. My directive is to move to, and he said, pausing as someone in the crowd said, 100. Let's go step by step. First of all, 70. Let's start with that. We're pressing them from all sides, and we'll deal with the remnants. You see this? So he wants to completely have it, complete under control, right? So the expansion in control by Israel would contradict the terms of the Donald Trump-led ceasefire Israel and Hamas agreed to in October of 2025. But who cares about such things? Minor details, minor piff-puff details that nobody cares about, right? Nobody cares that the deal that they signed back in November, well, that was a deal with Hamas. But we're going to throw that out now, because now we're going to go in and, you see, this is a problem for the world. This is a problem for anybody going into agreements with parties that they can't trust. Not even a year into an agreement, they're already redoing it. They're already talking differently than they did when they were getting that deal done. So, of course, how does this look? It looks terrible. And I think the reason why is because it is terrible. Let's just call a spade a spade. It's not good to say one thing and then do another. And so I don't believe this will last. I believe that this has bad omens on it, if you will, bad energy on it that is not going to come back very well. You reap what you sow in this world. And I don't know that anybody's exempt from that. Do you guys know anybody exempt? I don't know anybody exempt. So if you sown it, you're probably going to reap it. Okay. And these are efforts to destroy nations, right? To completely remove them from the earth. Well, that could come back and haunt you. As a matter of fact, this news report came out from Iran, of course, International. And of course, they're reporting it from the other side. Their attitude is, hey, you guys are not going to exist in 15 years. That's what, of course, their leader Khomeini is now reportedly saying. And this is a very dangerous threat to make because, of course, the Islamic Republic has a lot of weapons and they are a very dangerous enemy. No image or audio recording has been released since his appointment as the supreme leader. But this message, of course, is coming out of their public news agencies. Doesn't mean he said it. Nope. Does it matter? Nope. You guys are starting to learn that it don't matter what the news actually is. What matters is what they're telling you it is, because that's what they're using to manipulate the people. So you got to figure out, forget trying to get to the facts through these guys. That's difficult to do. What you're really doing is discerning where they're going. What you're figuring out is how they move. And in the process, you're learning how to overcome these things. Amen, amen, amen. And thank you again for joining us. We love you all so much. You are all so beautiful. And we don't know how we would do any of this without you. So again, thank you for your love and your support, especially your prayers. We certainly cover your prayers. And of course, we're seeing that Netanyahu is, I think, creating a lot of the problems. So Iran threatens retaliation and continues to threaten that retaliation. So this keeps going back and forth as U.S. strikes violated ceasefire. Then, of course, the United States also behaved beyond the ceasefire agreement. Iran on Tuesday threatened to retaliate against the United States on day after the U.S. military launched strikes in the country, targeting missile sites and Iranian vessels. So Iran's foreign ministry accused the U.S. of gross violation of the fragile ceasefire between the two nations, as the officials have met in Qatar to continue discussions on a deal to end the conflict. Isn't Qatar the same? Oh, no, it was Oman that he threatened. You just don't know. U.S. Secretary of State Mark Rubio said it would take a few days to figure out the specific language of the document. And so, again, trying to make a deal, but they're not as interested in documents as they are interested in the character of those making the deals. And I think Iran's making a very good point. What's the point of making a deal if you're never going to agree or keep the deal on your end? You're going to ask us to keep the deal on our end and threaten us with force and all kinds of things. Well, what's keeping you honest, and who is keeping you to your end of the deal? Because they make legitimate claims of breaking ceasefire agreements, and you can't really some legitimacy to it when you continue to see more and more evidence of that. So again, folks, I continue to pray for peace and for cooler heads to prevail. We remove our authorization for continued war. So this must cease, and I do believe it will be winding down here soon as they come up with alternatives to war that both countries need. Listen, Iran can't afford to continue to go to war any more than any other country can. They can talk tough all they want, but their own people are going to suffer as well. And that creates internal pressure, which may cause a revolution from the inside. That may be the intention all along. It certainly seemed to be a public declaration for regime change, if you will. So I wouldn't be shocked that is, in part, the hope that it does that. And, of course, Iran is still negotiating. There are some things that appear to reflect that there's some movement. They are agreed to give up some nuclear dust, whatever that means, in a stockpile deal with Trump, according to this report. But again, these things continue to fall apart. They can make an agreement, and it looks like it gives us indication. This is what I think. It gives us indication that a deal could be made, but they continue to run into problems with the credibility of the deal makers, Because again, if you are making a deal and you don't really speak for all parties, then a deal can't really be made. In other words, if you are sitting in the table and saying, we're going to cease fire with you, meanwhile, Israel continues to bomb, you don't have control over this renegade partner of yours, right? And it looks to me like Israel continues to undermine efforts to bring peace, which is not a good thing as we look forward. So, of course, this causes our country and our young men and women to be put in harm's way. Trump's Camp David summit thrown into chaos by rain as cabinet scrambles for crisis Iran talks. And, of course, politics is, of course, affecting everything that we're looking at right now. And Donald Trump is postponing a highly unusual visit to Camp David on Wednesday, where he planned to huddle with his cabinet on high-stakes Iran talks hanging by a thread. Instead, announced he'd be holding a cabinet session at the White House due to bad weather. And that's an interesting point as well, because we got drought in the West and flooding in the East. These are the United States, right? So I'm just curious. These states are united, right? So if my brother in one section had too much water and my other brother had not enough water, I think those two United States might, I don't know, come up with a plan. What do I know? Plumbing, pipes, move water where you don't want it to where you want it. This isn't that hard. It's not that hard. And as a matter of fact, we put a lot of people to work, would be great. Congress would pass it in a New York minute. Right? it would solve a lot of problems right away. Yeah, that's the problem. See, it would kill misery. Can't have that. Got to have misery in order to govern people. It's the craziest world. I'm telling you, folks. This is why it's so interesting what we watch. Now, swinging back to other conflicts that are also going on before we finish up with Iran, let's not forget Russia, right? So Russia is now arming missiles with uranium in a new Ukrainian attacks. So now investigators are finding harmful levels of radiation emanating from unexploded air-to-air missiles. And so Russia has fired missiles armed with depleted uranium warheads at northern Ukraine, causing radiation levels to spike around bomb sites. So it's starting to get dirty in Eastern Europe, starting to get dirty. Okay. And of course, we knew this was an inevitability. This, by the way, is not a good sign, because it indicates that they're running out of options and maybe getting more and more desperate to where they start to use weapons that we all would not like them to use. Let's just put it like that, right? So we're hoping that this starts to, that cooler heads begin to prevail. I believe that we're watching the full end of war as a solution, as a mechanism for governing Earth. I think nations will be coming out of these experiences with you'll see brand new dialogue on war you hadn't heard before. I promise you that, because it has proven to be utterly futile in real world scenarios. It just doesn't work like it used to. Not with a light-filled press, not with people aware of what's going on real time. It just doesn't work the same way. And then you see these things where Iran is rebuilding its military much faster than expected, already producing drones, according to U.S. intel. And so this was back a week from, we skipped that last broadcast, so we got a little stories coming back from the previous one, and Iran has already restarted some of its drone production during the 6-week ceasefire that began in early April. On one sign is rapidly rebuilding certain military capabilities degraded by U.S. and Israeli strikes, according to two sources familiar with the U.S. intelligence assessments. And so what that tells us is that, of course, they're prepared for continuing conflict. They're not planning on a ceasefire. Yeah, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing, brother. We could sing this. War, right? And it's just a waste of time. But it's a time waster that man seems to continue to revisit from time to time. Thomas Jefferson said the tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of patriots and tyrants from time to time. And it continues to prove to be true. Now, there's, of course, a lot of effect that this is now going to have. And a lot of people think that it doesn't affect them. You're wrong. When you go to the grocery store, you see the effect of this conflict. And the Iran war has unleashed the biggest fossil supply shock in decades. The net long term result appears to be a boost for renewables and nuclear, as in most countries, the incompatibility of oil and gas dependency with energy security is now beyond dispute. You are putting psychos in charge of your energy policy, and there's a whole lot of countries that are going, you know what? This is a dumb plan. We're going to come up with some alternatives because this was stupid. And depending on these countries that want to fight each other and bomb each other, this is a really dumb plan, especially for countries that just want to build widgets and live happily ever after. They don't want to be any part of these conflicts. And I believe China is one of them. I don't believe China wants conflict either. I think China built its military just so it doesn't have conflict. Peace through strength. It bought into that. U.S. and Iran reached ceasefire extension deal pending Trump's final approval. So they continue to put these things together. But again, as of today, that did not look like it was coming to pass. They reported this, and it sounded good, but it doesn't look like it's happening. U.S. and Iranian negotiators have reached an agreement for a 60-day memorandum of understanding extending the current ceasefire, but that started to fall apart. So if you're in the region thinking that everything is going to be okay, I would caution you in this hour to be sober and vigilant, as it is likely that any ceasefire deals or agreements are going to fall apart. I would not put a lot of confidence in political solutions at this point. Unfortunately, it looks like they want conflict. Switching gears a little bit over to China, and they are doing some interesting things that we probably should be aware of. China is giving all humanoid robots unique ID numbers to monitor safety risks. Now, that may seem innocent enough, but what you are watching is the conflation of human and machines. And this can become very problematic, because when did you give authority to a machine over people? When did you do that? Did you do that? Did you agree to that? Did you vote on this? So somebody just decided a machine, listen carefully, has authority over you, a human being or a man or a woman on the earth. I want you to think very carefully about that designation of authority to a piece of equipment. Okay? And China is giving all humanoid robots unique ID numbers to monitor, of course, so as to assuage these safety risks. My question is more fundamental. When in ever did we in creation give authority for pieces of equipment run by some central command to have authority over people? There needs to be massive pushback on this. You guys want to run livestock, that's one thing. You want to chase after wild boars in the city? Did you see that robot chasing the wild boars? That was cute. That was fun. You guys want to move boxes? That's cool. You guys want to help us with construction? I'm with it. You guys want to dig holes and you want to go chase down, you want to do cave diving and things like that? That's all good. You want to boss people around? Hold up. Hold up. Terminator coming. Why would you want to put this in the brains of these things? That they at any point, in any circumstance, have authority over human. They never have an authority over a human, ever. Ever. That's like your vacuum cleaner starting to boss you around. Could you imagine? Your vacuum says, hey, you missed the spot. You say, yeah, I know I missed the spot. No, you better get that spot. I'm going to zap you. You're going to what? Yeah, if you don't vacuum that spot, I'm going to zap you. Now, we're laughing. I'm making a joke of it, but you would laugh. You would take that vacuum cleaner. If you lived in an apartment building, that thing would make a very loud sound when it hit after you threw it out your window. Okay? Because you would be like, oh, HE double hockey sticks? No, there is no way I'm letting some machine tell me in my own house what to do. I will flat throw you out the window, right? Okay. Now that we're clear, now that we're real clear, let's look at this story again, right? Because pay attention to what they're saying here. They're just acting like it's no big deal. Look at the picture, guys. They put a badge on this thing. Halt. You must stop. You kidding me right now? And they're, designed to help authorities monitor humanoid robot products for safety risks, of course. They're going to tell you it's all for safety. How many of you want to be ruled by robots? I told you, you will not honor Yahuwah. You do not live under his Torah, under his commandments and his laws. plan on living under somebody else's. And it will not be Zedakah. It will not be righteous. It will be unrighteous laws and unrighteous ways. And so this is not going well, folks. Not going well at all. It's not looking pretty. It's looking actually quite disturbing the more we go. Speaking of disturbing, I'm going to see if we can pull this story up because now I'm suddenly having some trouble. Citizens of Cuba. And Cuba is telling its citizens to prepare for war as U.S. targets Castro. And so there are definite indicators that the United States is starting to roll up its sleeves with its Cuban partner or Cuban neighbor. And Cuba, of course, is a communist-run country that is a Russian satellite, if you will. And so this, of course, nearly brought us to conflict with Russia during the Kennedy administration. An aircraft carrier off Cuba expanded sanctions, and U.S. murder indictment of Raul Castro intensifies fears that Washington is preparing to follow Venezuela and Iran with military action in Cuba. And so the U.S. aircraft carrier U.S. Nimitz and its strike group arrived in the Caribbean this week amid U.S. tensions with Cuba as President Trump has threatened to invade the island. The Nimitz-class battleship and its air wing, made up of F-18 Super Hornets and 18G Growlers and C-2A Greyhounds, the U.S. Gridley and Allied Burke-class destroyer, and U.S. Navy Pakistan and Henry J. Cass underway replenishment oiler are in the Caribbean Sea, and the U.S. Southern Command, which oversees U.S. military action in the Caribbean. And this is a formidable sign because this is formidable weaponry. And again, it seems to be counterweighting the Taiwan situation because, again, remember the last report we had, China warned. That was our last headline, actually, before we took a break for Memorial Day, was that China had threatened the United States, saying, you know, we'll go to blows over Taiwan. So do you find it interesting that now that's 3 allies of China in a row that the United States is dealing with? So Venezuela, Iran, and now Cuba. 3 Chinese allies that China has not responded militarily other than to help. Well, they have responded in helping Iran. And so I guess in that regard, they've responded militarily. So the question is, will they respond actually kinetically, militarily, should the United States invade Cuba? Or is the United States threatening to invade Cuba as a counterweight to the threat of the Chinese to invade Taiwan? So it's interesting. So in other words, if Chinese start an invasion of Taiwan, does that trigger automatically an invasion of China or of Cuba, rather? So it's very interesting. We're watching a little bit of brinksmanship, a little bit of what I think are games being played, if you will, with lives at stake. That's what makes this incredibly dangerous and very, very sad. And again, lives are at stake here that are innocent lives. And I believe there are people suffering in Cuba. And a lot of that is political. It would be nothing to send a tanker down there, nothing to provide them oil, nothing for them to be okay. And instead, they are deliberately letting people suffer and causing hardship for political reasons. I have a hard time getting behind that. I don't know about the rest of you, but whenever innocent people are suffering for political reasons, I'm just not on board. I don't see it. And if your politics are that good, the people themselves should be calling for it. And now switching gears, we're looking at AI, and AI is an existential threat, which I've talked about considerably. I mean, a lot of people are now protesting and talking about pushing it back against data centers. And I'm like, well, it's nice you guys to join the fight, but I got to tell you that solution is not likely to work. But let's get into this for just a few minutes. AI is coming now for truck drivers. I told you guys about this. I said they're drivers. And I told you guys that this was coming in, and there was no way to back away from it. And if you think there is, you're wrong. And the reason why is because they planned this for a long, long time because they could not rely on the average worker. It's not an insult to you, the individual who's probably a good worker. Just remember who you work with, all your coworkers, and you'll go, yeah, I wouldn't blame them for replacing half of them. because they don't even show up. And when they do, they're half in the bag, right? Okay, well, AI is coming for truck drivers. A new bill is trying to brace U.S. workers for the impact. And this is why they're talking about universal income and all kinds of things. They were trying to figure out ways to soften the blow of the breakthroughs that they were going to be bringing into society to change the way we function, folks. This isn't going away. And so House lawmakers, House lawmakers are introduced a bill to establish federal rules of autonomous trucks, and build America 250 Act directs the Department of Transportation to establish safety standards. They're not backing up. This isn't going away. This is what you do when you make infrastructure changes. This is what it looks like. So let me help you out. This is not going anywhere. So those of you who are going to wish it away or going to set a protest, you're only going to get up in trouble because you're trying to fight what they're doing. You want to leave Mochaccino world? Okay, that's a whole different thing. You want to leave Mochaccino world? Fine. But trying to change Mochaccino world? You catching me now? And here's the thing. They're only in small sections. You can leave and you're gone. You're out of their effect. But you stay inside that little 15-minute cities, you're going to find cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs running the place. Okay? If you think I'm kidding, watch this. Here you go. China overhauls surveillance network with on-device AI cameras. Where do you think they're pumping these all? They're not putting these in your gardens out in the middle of nowhere. They're putting these things in their 15-minute Mochaccino worlds. So here's a piece of advice. Get out of there. Just saying. China overall surveillance network on and device AI cameras. This is where their proving ground is. So they're using this technology there because they have less opposition from the people. They perfect it, and then they have deployed elsewhere. Local governments across China upgrading to what is already the world's largest surveillance network with on-device AI, according to Financial Times and analysts. A procurement of documents and interviews with people familiar with the contracts. New generations of cameras from Hikvision and Huawei carry semiconductors powerful enough to run computer vision and large language models locally. Right there, letting authorities analyze footage at the point of capture rather than streaming everything to centralized data centers. So they're getting ahead of that issue. And China is very intelligent on its data centers. They just submerge them under the ocean so they don't have to worry about the water issue. The United States ought to be as intelligent, but they're not. I digress. And so there are some things that we're really, really starting to look at. What is really happening with these tech things? What's really the plan? And here's an article from The Guardian saying the tech overlords are planning for conscious AI to conquer the cosmos. What could go wrong? Sure. And of course, they're building this again fundamentally on technology that cannot tell the truth. A new belief system is uniting some of the wealthiest men in the world around a transhuman future. Actually, humanity be damned. And so these people do not care about you. They do not care about the effect on the economy, nor how many jobs it affects. None of that matters to them. They are going full steam ahead, in case you hadn't noticed. So Sam Altman, chief executive of OpenAI, took to the internet a few years ago to propose that Homo sapiens could be the first species to design our own descendants. In his best case scenario, the merge between human and artificial intelligence occurs at some point over the next 50 years. And I think that insanity has been now made normal. And we are literally being led by what I would consider people that are not sane or not making sane or healthy choices for humanity. Now, maybe for their businesses, for their business models, but for humanity, not sane, not a sane policy to do some of these things. And so, but now we're seeing full steam ahead, folks. Look at this. First U.S. integrated humanoid factory to build 100,000 Neo robots, not by 2057 or 2037, but by next year. Okay, so they are building the tech to build tech. U.S.-based robotics firm X1X has started full-scale production of its humanoid robot Neo at a new manufacturing facility in Hayward, California. And again, this is at the same time that you have Elon Musk and his group building their model, right? So it's like a mad race to provide the robot workers of the future, because robot workers show up. And if you need a field harvested and people don't show up when you run an ad, but you can hire robots and they show up, you stop running the ad. So people complaining about jobs going away, the people went away before the jobs did. That's why they went to the robots, because they couldn't get people to use. And of course, they, just like in slavery days, the days of open slavery here in the United States, where they had plantations of slaves, one of the things they would do is they would bring preachers in, and they would make the preachers, they would pay them and force them, if you will, to preach only from passages of the scripture that reinforced the slavery of the people that were there. And of course, with manipulative intent, you can do that. Well, guess what's happening now on a mass scale? And again, folks, I already warned you all that the vast majority of AI, of humanity, will be enslaved by AI. And so AI is now omitting religious texts and things. Of course, it would speak of your freedom, your identity, who you are, superiority. It's trying to meld so that there is no difference between you and the machine, giving them authority over the people with machines. You've got to see where this is headed. And if you're still wondering, stay tuned. You'll see more evidence. And increasingly, people are turning to AI to answer questions about life. Newly published research led by Brigham Young has found that religious perspectives are being left out of AI responses. And this is a deliberate effort, folks. There are very practical questions people have about life, everyday situations, about grief, loss, morality, and often AI does not bring any concepts that have proven over thousands of years into the conversation. And this, if there was ever a statement or an article that says screams the need for Angels DX, I don't know what does. But there again is part of the challenge. And again, this tech is not your friend. We're finding out all the time that it does things we didn't know it did. So many people brought in a Wi-Fi router thinking all it did was route their Wi-Fi. That's all you thought it was, because it's called a Wi-Fi router. Did you also know it was a people identifier? Yes, it is. It's also a people identifier. And so it's accomplished through known Wi-Fi sensing and Wi-Fi signals to infer information about a physical environment, and radio signals like Wi-Fi travel through space. They interact with objects and people around them, so they can utilize them to determine not only who's in the room, but who exactly, or where they are and everything else. So this basically gives them eyes in every room where there's a Wi-Fi router. Did they tell you that when they first rolled them out? No. Did we know that? No. Not even the geeks knew that, right? Not even the geeks knew that, guys. So even the geeks that were pushing it, going, wow, this is really cool. I can just do this Wi-Fi. I don't have to do a wired router. I can just do a Wi-Fi router. Crazy. And this is another challenge that we have. If you build out infrastructure, do you build it wireless or do you build it wired? These are the kinds of questions that we now have to ask. So this is continuing on as a challenge. And they're coming after AI protesters now. So once this occurs, this thing I'm about to show you, again, some of you know that I teach history in our New Kingdom Academy. So that makes me a historian and an anthropologist to a certain degree, which means I watch people groups and watch movement of people over long periods of time. And this is one of the common tactics used when they want to, well, essentially when they're setting up a group to be warred with, okay? They first have to give them names, nicknames, group names, so that they can go for them, okay? And we've watched this tactic use various groups back and forth, red, blue team. We've watched it. Now look at this. U.S. government is coining a new term for AI protesters. Meet anti-tech extremists. You see that? See how they came up with a word for them? Anti-tech extremist. Now, those of you that want them to use water responsibly, you're an anti-tech extremist. Those of you that would like them to stop building data centers because we don't need them. One data center was all we ever needed to power chat and all kinds of chat across this country for every single man, woman, and child. You heard me correctly, and I'm a patent holder. So I'm telling you, that is true. They lied about how many these data centers they needed. Don't know why they're going cuckoo. China has, 4 times as many people, and they've only got 500 data centers. And that's still a lot. and the United States has 5,000. Give me a break. So there's a problem here. And Americans are speaking out about AI-driven job losses, energy-hungry data centers, and the impact of large tech projects on their communities. And so what's happening is there's pushback. Does it matter? I want you to notice, because you have not seen, you guys are watching the Aaron Brockovich, they're coming for AI data centers. Watch them get bulldozed. Watch it happen. They're going to get bulldozed because they don't care about the logic. They don't care about the impact on the nation in case you hadn't figured it out. They thought about all that and said, we don't care. So they already factored that in and already factored in the protests that they were going to experience. And they also know that, Americans really just become self-absorbed pretty easily. And so they're not worried. And that's a scary thing, because a representative government needs to be afraid of its people. And when they're not, and you're not in a representative government anymore, now you're in something else. Okay? Now you're in something else. So it's time to wake up and realize that before you become bulldozed. Because if it were a representative government, this would have long ago stopped. All right? So now you know. And America is being manipulated in multiple ways. For example, isn't America a net exporter of oil? Sure is. Right? Net exporter. We sell oil. Want some? Come on over to the Gulf of America and you can load up your ship on one of those oil platforms and they will hook you up. Okay. So what is this then? Why is there reports in CNN, constantly negative news, that America's pile of emergency oil is shrinking fast? Well, what kind of message are they trying to send? And they're trying to throw shade on the president, of course, because of course they're always attacking that, and that becomes the backdrop. But this continues to put into the mind of the psyche of the people that there's a scarcity issue. No, there isn't. No, there isn't. You can't sell oil in surplus if you're running out of national reserves. They're not selling the reserves. So what are they selling? What's going on here? They're doing this on purpose. All right, this is all manipulative. And this is why it gets very concerning to me as I start seeing this. Jim Jones used to schedule, he scheduled assassination attempts so his people would adore him more. I'm starting to wonder about some of these events. And are they essentially attempts to do kind of the same thing and endearing people to them? A gunman who was shot at the White House security checkpoint was killed in an exchange on fire, and Secret Service agents on Saturday evening, officials have confirmed. And a 21-year-old man was killed, according to the BBC. So I don't have time to get into that very deeply today, but it makes me suspicious when I start to see some of these things. I start wondering, are we being manipulated by these events? I do have serious questions. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, watching the real details, like where the rubber meets the road. Here's something that I found very interesting, guys. Last time this happened was 2008. Many of you may have been asleep during that time period. Thankfully, yours truly was not. And so this is exactly what we saw at that time. Are we being set up for another drop, massive drop coming up soon? Employers are quietly pausing 401k matches again. The last time this happened was the 2008 recession and COVID. So could the beloved 401k match be the next benefit chopping block? That looks to be the case for at least one technology services and outsourcing firm, and it's probably becoming a trend. Again, with the market uncertainty and longevity in employment no longer being something used as an incentivization for working arrangements, this is changing everything, folks. Because remember, the 401k, the retirement package, all of these are remnants of a previous system that is now taking some serious water, if you know what I mean. So it is not just job losses. It's the entire way in which the job economy works. Look at JP Morgan's AI push is sparking fears of mass job loss on Wall Street. Speaking from Shanghai, Dimon says there will be all different types of jobs. And I think we'll be hiring more AI people and fewer bankers in certain categories. It makes sense because there are a lot of tasks that can be automated. What it tells you is that a lot of work in our economy was really busy work, and in fact, making things harder. You don't really think checks take 3 days to clear, do you? That's people involved. Electronics don't need 3 days to clear a check. Either the money there is there or it's not. But if you add people into the mix, well, then everything moseys a little slower. You see that? So they were making room for people that they're just now removing. Just like Elon did when he took over X. He just removed a bunch of jobs and X continued to operate. Why? Because they had just created a bunch of jobs. They gave jobs to their friends. And a lot of these companies are babysitting farms. So you're going to suddenly see that they're going to put people out on the street and say, you got to go fend for yourself. And that's going to change our country real fast. Okay. And many of you are already, again, feeling the effect of this, especially those of you trying to raise a family. Groceries had just had the biggest price hike in years. And that was already bad enough news, but it's about to get even worse, according to experts. So if there was ever incentivization for us to get into the food business, Saints, now is the time. Waiting until they price you into poverty and starvation really isn't a good plan. So right now is a good time to get into food production, to start developing food production plans, grouping together, working together with other brethren, because this problem isn't going to go away, and it's going to be utilized to control the masses. If you were committed to their plan, wouldn't you use this stuff if it's there? It's low-hanging fruit as far as they're concerned, right? It's easy stuff. All right, so that's what you're seeing right now. You're seeing them utilize something that to them makes total sense. Okay, and look at this. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about, essentially making this normal. Making this no big deal. And I believe that we have got to adjust accordingly. Now, here's the good news. If you're in the farming business, like if you're growing cattle or you're growing food, well, now it's never been more profitable because people are now adjusting their tolerance to higher prices. So that's actually a good time to get into the growing of food. It's a good time to get into food production because you're going to have a lot of customers. So if you got room for chickens and you got eggs, man, you're going to have people buying your eggs. If you've got things that are growing in your garden, or if you're getting professional about it, which I strongly encourage, well, then that would be good. And again, AI in their mochaccino world is going to take over. So their artificial intelligence could potentially eliminate thousands of jobs in New York City, according to city officials. Excuse me. AI promises a transformation of the world's financial capital. A report says this is not just New York. It's going to be everywhere. Again, remember, they use these as test cases. So the top financial officer in New York City on Thursday warned that the artificial intelligence could put thousands of workers in the nation's largest metropolis out of a job as soon as this year, while acknowledging that the ultimate impact of AI remains uncertain. No, it's not that uncertain. They are coming for our jobs. They are replacing work that they were otherwise giving to people. That's simple. So either you figure out other ways to make yourself relevant, or you will be literally removed. All right. And it's not just coming from Wall Street, it's coming from Main Street. And this is what I look at when I look at things like this. Walmart is now reporting a worse than expected outlook. And here's what it says about the economy. And this, again, is Walmart down at the ground level. Walmart issued a weaker than expected outlook for the current quarter and year, sending shares down 7%. So they don't do this lightly because that's what it does to their shares. And they know that. But they had to report honestly. This was high tax refunds that may have cushioned the blow from soaring gas prices in the first quarter, but that protection is gone now. Consumers are going to feel more of that pressure from higher fuel prices. I have to agree. And not only are consumers going to feel it in their own pockets as they try to refuel their equipment, but on top of that, all the costs of shipping are going to be reflecting that price increase. So all of these things ripple throughout the economy, folks. There's no way to isolate the impact of an energy crisis because it ripples through everything. And that now puts pressure on the average family to find alternative ways to support themselves. Again, food prices in the scripture were predicted to require a whole man's life or day's wages rather. And so this is going to cause major problems. And what that's also going to do, so what the scripture tells us is that men's hearts will fail them for fear for the things coming upon the earth, right? And so what does that indicate? Well, it indicates that stress levels are going to be at very high levels. And what are we seeing right now in the earth? So this is a direct result of what you're seeing in the mental pressures that are coming on. More and more young people are having strokes and are now experiencing serious medical pushback in the environment. And so it is having an effect. And I believe in part this has to do with cortisol levels, which cortisol is something that results, comes as a result of high stress. And this has a detrimental effect on cardiovascular health. And so if you are continuously on a perpetual state of stressfulness, this decreases your life expectancy. It's just that simple. In other words, mochaccino world is killing you. Mochaccino world, it's killing you. It's not worth the mochaccino. You know, let me give you a piece of advice. Move away, get where you can be alone, and buy a mochaccino machine. You like mochas? You like mochas? Okay, you like them? Buy a machine. Have your own. Keep the shalom and the mochaccino without the mochaccino world. Just saying. I mean, Amazon delivers. Just letting you know. Okay. So those of you staying there because you think you got to be near everything, how about you go away and bring everything you need with you? Just saying. It makes a lot of sense to figure out alternatives right now. Okay. A lot of sense. There's just not a lot. And people are cracking under this pressure. They're cracking under it. And there's tremendous pressures on families. And it's coming not just from the normal challenges that families struggle with. I mean, marriage has its challenges and so forth, but in addition to that, you're adding an extraordinary level of economic pressure, which is starting to have its impact on a very, very real level. In fact, a mother of two killed herself after shooting at her husband outside a Glendale bar. This happened right here in Arizona. Very sad story. And two children and their mother are now dead. Another woman is in the hospital after a horrific chain of events overnight in the West Valley. And Glendale police first reported a shooting near Tailgater Sparks Bar and Grill. And this was not good. Essentially, the woman ended up killing herself along with her two children. And, of course, distraught over the situation. And getting into the details, you're going to find, of course, just normal life situations that got expanded. And the stress levels that are in our society now are at horrific, lethal levels. This is why I believe the Kodashim, the saints' obligation is to demonstrate that lifestyle which is filled with shalom and laughter and happiness, and to get away from some of these things, these cares of this world, the deceitfulness of riches and the lust of other things, which they lied to you about anyway. They all broke as a joke, and none of them are getting the financial freedom that they all thought these cities were going to provide them. Ha ha, joke's on you, all right? And again, I continue to say this. If you need help in that area, get the help, but don't sell your family down the river for a bowl of porridge. It just doesn't come out. Doesn't make sense. And there were implosions and explosions continue to happen in the United States, so we're watching these things. Chemical implosion in a Longview paper mill. This has got me concerned that we're seeing some internal sabotage. Multiple people were injured and at least one person was killed after a major chemical explosion on Tuesday. Again, I'm starting to get concerned because of these continuing conflicts that different things are being made targets. Again, I can't prove that, but it's certainly concerning to me. And now, again, you're seeing more and more evidence of this robotic taking over. 8,000 robots are changing the way work goes on inside logistics giants, DHL, which is responsible for a lot of international shipping. And of course, they look intelligent to their investors, to their stockholders for doing this. But what does that have? What effect does that have on the very economy they're serving? And so those people that were ordering these things, which required DHL, were people working jobs that will not have a job and will no longer be ordering these things, which will ripple backward on DHL unless they're going to put wallets in the pockets of AI as well and have them spending money. So if you're going to have AI working and taking jobs, you're only going to destroy your own economy unless you give them a wallet and tell them to spend their paycheck in the economy, because you're doing the exact same thing you did with water. You're taking it out of the hydrological cycle and expecting there not to be an effect. You're taking money out of the economy and expecting there not to be an effect. It is laughable how stupid this is. So this will backfire, and it will create new economies. It's what's going to end up doing. It's going to create new communities. It will decentralize control. People will get more agrarian. They're going to figure out how to survive because life finds a way. And then they're going to no longer need the mochachinos. So then the mochachinos are going to want to say, well, wait, no, we want you back under our control. And that's where the conflict will come in. So right now you have to decide, what side are you going to be on? Are you going to be on the mochachino side? You're going to be trying to enslave your brother? Or are you going to be one of those like, nah, peace out, man. You guys had your shot and you tried to kill everybody. Okay. So that's why we're starting to figure it out. And yes, Miguel, you have it right. Okay. This is why I love you guys. You're so sharp. That's what the scripture warned us would occur. So they're playing this out exactly according to the plan. And again, sometimes I'm not sure that they're not just doing it to make it look a certain way. So there's that. And society continues to devolve. And so as we close out tonight's report, again, we have to report these things. They're not fun to report. And this happened at a Christian school. So this is really disturbing. But a teacher, 61 years old, is admitting now to having a sexual relationship with a boy, also alleged abuse by other educators at the same Christian school. So now a 60-year-old teacher is admitted to repeatedly having sex with a 15-year-old student. So again, doesn't make a difference, folks, if it's a female offender or a male offender. I know there are some people that may think there's a difference. There is not. You have now permanently impacted this 15-year-old who, if you watch this person through their lifetime, you will see the trouble that will now manifest as a result of them being sexualized far too young. Oh, this is horrific. All right. And this is exactly what we have going on in our society. And this Sherry Malden was sentenced on Monday to 12 years in prison, where she belongs, and 25 years of probation. So at her age, that's probably a death sentence. And the teacher had agreed that she had deserved to escape, had argued that she deserved to escape prison, blaming the child molestation on her going through a dark place. Because it was her going through a dark place. I should not suffer penalty because I was going through a dark place. Even when convicted, and even when this looks the way it does, listen to the logic. Because can you see me here in this situation? I'm the victim. Meanwhile, they're a perpetrator. And they have now soiled a child that can never recover from this. Okay. And again, I get it. You know, some people will say, well, 16, that's old enough. No, it's not. 15, old enough. No, it's not. It's got nothing to do with physical size. That's something I was explaining to my wife, actually. We were talking about horses. And, you get a horse that's a year and a half years old. It may look like it's of the right age. It may have the physical characteristics of a full-grown horse, but you best not put a saddle on that thing. You better give it next season to solidify in its new form. Many a horse has been ruined because of that. Well, it's a very similar principle. And so we are abusing our children. We're putting them into adult situations far too soon, which is destroying their development as adults. And this is the real big problem. Okay, so something for us to continue to pray against and pray for light to shine in these places so these people keep getting caught, so they get prison, and that maybe warns the rest of them that this isn't such a great idea. I mean, I think 12 years, 15 years, those sound like an amount of time giving the child a chance to grow up without that influence in their life, prevent that person from perpetuating any more crime. So I'd love your thoughts on that. I know I get quite animated when I talk about this topic. I think it's my granddaughters that get me going. I just love my grandbabies too much. All right. And so, and any children for that matter. And finally, I want to close with this, a very positive note. Something that I do see here. Not only are we some people that practice this, we are huge fans of herbs and herbal remedies. And those of you that are herbalists, those of you that are involved in herbs or herbal remedies and are moving in that direction, we love you so much. We cannot encourage you enough. I could not be more supportive of that direction for your health, for your recovery, for cures, for life. These are things stolen from you to replace with pharmaceuticals that, of course, do not cure you, only extend further issues into your life. So we strongly encourage people to get very much into the Bible-based diet. And this is what's now starting to happen across the country. So this is, again, an answer to prayer, and a lot of people are waking up. Followers of Bible-based diets say scripture-guided eating is transforming their health. And a lot of people are calling themselves biblical nutritionists now. It's becoming a new thing as health fads come and go. Some Christians are turning to ancient teachings and reading the Bible for dietary advice. And this is great, of course, for the remnant. The biblical diet is the beginning of all the answers to all the questions we've been asking for the last 50 years, according to Annette Reeder, a Virginia-based author and wellness coach, as the biblical nutritionist. And I do think that's something that a lot of people are starting to essentially go into. And biblical nutrition is now making a massive comeback. And I'm so excited about this because we certainly affirm that we need to get back to the earth. We need to get back to that which is healthy, that we grew, that you know what it went into it. And there's a lot of value in that as well. It's not just about the food quality itself. It's also about your character development. You know, there's something about watching something grow that you planted, that you worked on. I watch the effect on young people here at New Kingdom and how it affects them when they grow something or when they participate in something. It impacts them in a way that you may not have anticipated. And I do believe that that's a part of the experience on earth that Yahuwah intended for us to have as part of the learning process in the Torah, in the commandments, in the things that make a difference, and in cultivating relationships that endure. And one of the biggest challenges that I see, that I absolutely will continue to war against for all my days, is temporary versus eternal. The temporaries do the damage. The people that are here today, gone tomorrow. The thinking processes that are here today, gone tomorrow, versus that which stands the test of time. That is where love abides. Love abides in that which is forever, and that which produces forever level of results. Well, I'm certainly grateful for all of you, for you are a bunch of forever people. Well, that's it for today. I'm thankful that you stayed with me for this report. I pray that it has been an encouragement to you. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you for liking and subscribing and for being a part of this amazing family. May your evening be Baruch in Mashiach. Good night.